All right, welcome back to the Student Athlete Performance Podcast. Today I have Patrick Jones. He is a former D1 athlete, former minor league hitting coach with the Orioles, and now he's a recruiting mentor helping high school baseball players get placed. So, yes, he's a baseball guy, but what we are covering applies to any athlete trying to play college ball. So, what you do each year based on from middle school to senior year, and what parents and athletes should and should not do in recruiting.
Nick, thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, of course. So I'm excited about this first part because, and athletes, this will really help you guys visualize, okay, like this is where I'm at, this is where I should be focused on. So, we're gonna time block it. We're gonna hit middle school, freshman, all the way up to senior year. So starting with middle school, like if they want to play college ball, what actually matters right now, if you could boil it down to like a few different things?
Here's the thing, like I think about this always in the lens from like a parent standpoint. And what I mean by that is if I give advice, I always pretend like I have a kid who's that age and like what advice would I give them? Because if I give the advice from that lens, then it's like it's coming from a place where it's like, man, like you want your kid to succeed more than anything else in the world and give them the best opportunity. And so I've always found to come give advice from that type of lens. So when it comes to middle school, quite honestly, Nick, like I want the kids having fun. I want them throwing hard, running hard, swinging hard. I don't care about stats or anything like that at that age. My goal for every middle school kid is as much as they love to play in middle school, they want to play just as bad in high school as they do right now in middle school. So I think that's honestly the big thing for me at that age is to have as much fun as you possibly can. And then when you do play, like play hard, play fast because your body's developing and changing. And so you want to already be used to being able to do everything at full speed. And then the older you get, you can hone in on techniques and things like that as well. So the big thing, Nick, that I would say the thing not to do would be to hone in and focus on mechanics because there's nothing that's going to slow a kid from a development standpoint more than anything else. And then having someone constantly giving him mechanical cues and things like that, their IQ isn't high enough to be able to handle all that at that age. And quite honestly, they really probably won't even be able to handle that until college, quite honestly. A little bit here and there, but I don't even start introducing or even talking a whole lot about mechanics until players are in high school.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like I hear a lot of different things on mechanics, so that I like that perspective because it's like, yeah, like their brains are, especially guys, like we're so behind when it comes to maturity and when you talk about like the development and stuff. So it's like, yeah, a lot of that stuff is a little bit later. So not trying to like put them in this tiny box when, hey, maybe, I mean, you see some players, who are completely different. Like if we refer to hitting, for example, completely different in terms of how they hit, how they swing, and it works really well for them. I also like you highlight on the fun part, and it's because it's like there's so many athletes and families that are so driven on, okay, the 12U World Series, all these different little things going on, and it's like it's fun, but at the same time, like that's not going to be the difference maker between you getting recruited or not. So like, what do you think families are overspending on when it comes to the middle school age?
Doing travel sports in middle school, I think, is insane. I mean, it's just not necessary at all. And that's like any sport. I'm just saying that in general. Like, I think you want to give your kid a competitive advantage, and I definitely understand that. But here's a different way to look at it. Okay. And I'm going to go a little bit into baseball for a second here because that's obviously what I know really well. So think of all the resources we have in the United States from a training standpoint, from a development standpoint, from just an overall, resources standpoint, like from a nutrition, like everything. Isn't it crazy that 30% of major league players come from Latin America? We have all these resources in the United States, and yet guys who are in their living room having their siblings throw socks at them and hit it with a stick to practice their hitting for the day because they can't go outside for whatever reason. They're the ones who they have 30% of all the spots in the major leagues making millions of dollars, and they're hitting sticks on the streets in the Dominican Republic. They have no technology. They don't have any of that stuff. And so I think that's the thing to always keep in mind is it's not about like the resources that you have, it's about the resourcefulness. And so don't always be obsessed with or worry about having to travel here or there, worry about competition. I'll be honest with you, a lot of times it's not going to come down to that. It's going to come down to your overall engine, what I call the engine. And what I mean when I say that is there's a lot of good players out there, but you get to a certain point in time, and I saw this, it sticks out like a sore thumb when you get to the minor leagues, for example. There's guys who maybe they played at a very high level, even in college, maybe in high school. If you don't have the strength when you're facing someone throwing 95 miles an hour, it doesn't matter what travel tournament you went to. Nothing else matters. Like you're gonna get your socks blown off because you just don't have the strength yet. And so I just think focusing like on long term true player development is going to be the answer at that age, not going from tournament to tournament, running around everywhere. Because again, I'm viewing this from someone who's just observed a lot, and I have no dog in the fight. If you want to go play travel baseball, if you don't want to go play travel, it doesn't matter to me. It's not my money or my time, but that's what I would take out and recommend. Because it's also, Nick, it's not even just a money thing. It's also, that's a lot of time. Now, what I will say is if you truly enjoy that time and you're doing it specifically to spend more time with your kid or take the family on trips or things like that, I get all that. But I would say by and large, that's probably not the reason.
Dude, that was really, I'm really glad that you said all that, and I really liked you said it's not about the resources, it's about the resourcefulness. Like that is so huge. Like that's a really, really good point. I know baseball, that's an example, but even now we're seeing that with basketball. Like there's a shift in basketball more and more in terms of like not necessarily the NBA, but in terms of like these solid teams. Like you're getting more and more teams in other countries that are, getting to that level. Yeah, so it's a really necessary
Are
point
you
for both
finding,
athletes
because
and parents to be hearing.
it sounds like you're more aware of what's going on in other sports. Are you finding what I just said very similar in other sports too?
I think it's growing. So like basketball, you have a lot of that. Soccer, I feel like it's been a thing for a while. They definitely travel a good amount. I think baseball travels the farthest, but even football, they'll do like I know some of the teams near me, like they're like training facilities, and then they have their tackle teams, and they'll go and play teams across the country as well. Just to play some better team type of thing. And again, that's from 12U, 13,
Well,
14.
and I
I'm
think the other
seeing
thing
that
that
quite
people don't
frequently.
think about, Nick, is it actually takes a little bit of the joy away from that particular player the older that they get. And what I mean by that is I remember when I was maybe like 16, 17, even 18, like for the first time I flew on a plane to go and play in a tournament. Kids are doing that at 13, 12, 13 years old. And so by the time they get to 17, 18, or even college, for example, there's not as much joy and excitement and built up into doing that because they've done it their entire life. And so I think there's a part of it is like you don't want to rob them of that joy and something to look forward to and give it to them way too early before they've even proven that they really want this really bad, because you're stealing them from some joy later on.
Yeah, no, that's really good. It's kind of like in a dating relationship. You don't just do everything all at once. Otherwise, people get bored. Like certain people get bored in relationships. Is like, well, because you try to do everything all at once.
It's like you don't want to text
But
with the
yeah, no,
person
it's
all day long, and then it's like you see him, it's like, well, I don't know what we're going to talk about. We've been texting for all day about every little thing.
yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, let's shift to the freshman year then. So freshman year, can be really foundational year, and now there's more of the boundaries in terms of the recruiting side, so that athletes can enjoy their freshman year a little bit more. So, like, what should a ninth grader do, weekly that can really separate them and
Yeah,
get them ahead
the
for
freshman year
sophomore
is
year?
really it's building that foundation, and I think way too many people start to panic. You get in high school and think that recruiting you have to do this or that. Freshman year, it really is the foundational phase of high school recruiting, because that is when you're putting everything. You're building the foundation for the future. And what I mean by that is one, like the fundamental thing is like the grades. Like you want to set yourself up to have as many opportunities as you possibly can. And getting really good grades does that. And it also can save your family a ton of money. I've had kids who have gotten tens of thousands of dollars extra in scholarship money because they had good grades. And that starts by the time you're a freshman. Obviously, from a development standpoint, it's the same thing. We're still honing in on development. I personally don't even start working with kids in the recruiting process until they're a sophomore. And so that should hopefully give you an idea of, from a freshman standpoint, of it really truly is about developing. And I know I continue to say developing, but that is the most important thing, because at the end of the day, it's not hard for me to get on the phone and get someone to go and watch a player. The thing is like, is that player ready for when that coach goes and watches them? And so a big part of this is you're working in silent. And so by the time you do get in public, like, now it's showtime. And so I think that's the thing to think about. And so that plays a huge part from a freshman standpoint. And from what I've seen too, it's about getting bigger, faster, stronger as a freshman as well. Kind of what I said earlier about sticking out like a sore thumb as from a professional baseball standpoint, when guys are throwing 95 and you don't have very much bat speed. Well, that starts in the weight room. It starts with nutrition, things like that. You got to build those habits early on. And then what ends up happening is they compound like later on throughout your career. So freshman year, you may be starting the nutrition, you may be starting the lifting, the throwing, whatever it is, whatever sport you're in, and you're not seeing those results right away. But that doesn't mean that you're not building and you're not knocking at that door, and before you know it, the door finally opens. And you don't want to quit those habits too early, because this is what I see a lot of times, Nick, is people will stop too early before the compounding can take place. It's very similar to investing, where if I invested $1,000 a month and did that and stopped after three months because I didn't see a huge return, well, heck, if I just have kept going another 9 months, I would have seen a return on that investment, the S&P 500, 7-8%, right? It's the exact same concept from a player development standpoint.
Yeah, I'm really glad you emphasize that, because yeah, there's so many athletes that will start that so late. They'll be junior, senior years, and they're coming to me, wanting to get bigger, stronger, faster, leaner, stronger, whatever. And it's like, okay, great, we can do that, but at the same time, this is your prime time for recruiting, so it'd have been
Right.
great if we could have started that sooner. And I see so many freshmen coming in, which is totally understandable. Like, I mean, one of my prime examples, Drew, that I reference a lot, he freshman year he was 6'1", one not even 140, but then by his sophomore year he was 6'1", 170. So got him to a solid point, and it's like that set him up so that he could focus on developing as a hitter, developing, all the different things, and develop mentally too, because at that point it was like, okay, all I started shining on him because of he was
Well,
looking the part
and
and starting
it
to
sounded
play the
like he
part
had a
too.
he had a plan, but like, because he had a plan and because he started preparing early on, that's one less thing that he has to now worry about, because it is a habit. And obviously you got to keep working at it and things like that too, and keep doing it. But the older you get, the more things that are thrown at you, the more things you have to do. And whether it be from a recruiting standpoint, grade standpoint, you're traveling around more. Now you're got to look at different colleges, and there's maybe some social aspects that you didn't have before. So a lot of things feel like they're thrown at you at one time. And if you can eliminate that and start a little bit earlier, and what I call just doing the boring stuff, then later on, when things start to come about, you've already got that foundation built because you start earlier.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then now as we transition to sophomore year, so you said you don't typically work with somebody until they're a sophomore. So what should they be worrying about? What should they be
Yeah,
like
I would say
focusing their
sophomore year,
energy on?
for at least the players that I work with anyway, is a big part of it is, we're starting to like put some plans together in place in terms of, hey, like, what would be potentially like a good fit from a school standpoint. We're doing more social media stuff and marketing when it comes to that, and I'm educating them on doing that, and then I'm doing that for them on my behalf as well. And a big part of it though too is there's different rules within each sport from a recruiting standpoint, timelines, and then there's obviously some different showcases and things like that as well. But we're being very selective on which ones we go to. And quite honestly, not going to any showcases sometimes is the best plan, because if you're not even ready at that point from a metric standpoint, or your body's not growing yet, you don't want to show up and then not be ready or not perform at a high level. And so sometimes, you know, the hardest thing to do is nothing. And so we don't necessarily even do a lot of showcases, or I tell them to not even go to certain camps and things like that as well. Let's save the time. Let's save the money. Let's still focus on getting really, really good. because I have a funny feeling, Nick, it doesn't matter what sport you play. If you're really, really good, they'll make a spot for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you mentioned showcases potentially at this point, but I know.
What I recommend, and again, this is specific for baseball. For specific for baseball, one showcase
Yeah.
per year. One showcase, and the event is called Prep Baseball Report. I recommend one event per year just to show over the next 2 to 3 years your continued growth. You don't need to go to any more than that. Now, in other sports, it might be different, but I still don't think you need to go to any more than one, even in other sports. I think they do a really good job. Well, for one, I try to be objective, and so I just observe what most of the college coaches do and which company that they go to and reference and use the most. Prep Baseball Report is consistently that one, and so it's a combination of that. They also it's just from a user experience even standpoint, it's easy to go on there, watch video of the player, see their metrics real quick. You can evaluate them, and they also just do a good job from a video standpoint as well. So I think it's a combination of all those.
Okay. What about the college showcases? Because I know there's a lot of those, like where a specific college will host something.
With the college coaches, yes, there are a lot of those. Uh, a lot of those. And so you do have to be careful which ones you go to. And then what I recommend, and this is what I do for my own clients, is I don't kind of what I was saying before. I don't send kids to that many camps either, because I'll reach out ahead of time to that coach of that program or those schools, and I'll say, like, hey, are you looking for a player in this class? And if the answer is no, well, then obviously we're not going. It doesn't matter how bad you want to go to the school. Like, they're not even looking for your position. And then the other thing is, like, okay, if they are, then it's like, would you
Yeah.
be interested in this player? Now, obviously, if you're a player reaching out to a coach, that's a different dynamic than if a third party is reaching out. And so finding someone that can be that third party, I think is important for that specifically. Because here's the thing, they're not, if you email the coach as a player, they don't know who you are. They're just going to tell you to come to camp. Obviously, I would do that too. And so it's no different than getting a random call from a toll free number. You might answer it, you might not, but you don't know who that is. So it's different. It's finding somebody who has trust within college coaches that can give you that honest feedback, I think is important. And if you don't have that, it's okay. Be patient. Someone will have that. And you may have to ask, right? You may have to reach out to different coaches or people that you trust, or find somebody that can do that on your behalf. Otherwise, it's just going to be hard to know.
Yeah, yeah. Now for junior year, this is an interesting one because I know that August 1st used to be this big deal in the past, and now it's kind of becoming less of a thing. You're here. I have much fewer offers going out August 1st or like shortly afterwards. So what should a junior be focusing on? Not just in terms of what they're doing, but even like mentally, because I know that is a transition for a lot of these athletes. And I think last year was the first year where that really, really kind of sunk in a little bit.
Let me first start out by saying, back when I was in high school, back when I was playing, the rule used to be, I think it was either July 15th, June 5th. It was something in the summer that coaches could call like after this specific date. And so I remember, waiting for that day, and I did not get a single phone call that day from anybody. It didn't even matter. It didn't matter what level. Nobody called me that day. Nobody called me the next day after that, or the next week, or the next month after that. And I still ended up getting several scholarship offers to go and play college baseball. So a big part of it is it's the timeline. It's where you're at from a skill set standpoint. It's who's seen you to date as well, the needs of the school. And so you can kind of get where I'm going at, where a part of it is don't put too much stock into it. I mean, like, yeah, it may say something to date, but the way that works is, as well, as that usually the what I call just the big dogs, right? The power fours, they go first. And so they're going to go and get the players that they want. I mean, everyone else is going to come after that a lot of times. And so usually that's how it works. And here's the other thing too. Like, okay, let's say you get an offer August 1st, you commit to a school, you're not starting college August 2nd. And they can pull that offer anytime until you sign anyway. So the focus should still be on the same thing, which is you're going to continue to get better, improve your skills, improve your grades, be so good that they can't ignore you. And so when you do step foot on college campus for the first time, whether that be from an offer you get August 1st, whether that be the day after you graduate from high school as a senior, you're ready to roll.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a huge thing. Like I know, like I like that you emphasize that because I think so many guys they get and gals they get comfortable when it comes to the recruiting once they have their offer, once they're committed. Like, and that's in any sport. I see it like football because they got to post all their different offers for football. Baseball is a little bit more quiet, but it's like one thing I really love about Drew is that he is very hungry and he shows. I always highlight him because he doesn't just stop at the offer. So he was one of those kids. He actually did get an offer. I think he committed in September, October of his junior year, and that was after visiting University of Portland. And he didn't stop there though because he was told he needed to get faster. He had a 7.55 60, and then he worked on it hard. And by the time he hit spring, he was at a 6.7. And so he, it's like, look at what's your next opportunity development wise. How can you keep growing?
Nick, is like, why are you playing this game? Are you playing this game for a specific outcome? And if that's the case, no judgment at all. You can do whatever you want. I personally don't think that's the right reason to play the game. I think you should be playing the game because you love to play the game. And so if you love something, you want to continue doing it. You respect it because you love it. It's given you a lot. And so you want to continue to try to improve and get better at it. If you're playing it for a specific outcome, then your love for the game is going to be determined by whatever outcome that is. And your confidence is going to go up and down depending on how you view success or that specific outcome. So I think that's something that I think players should be focusing on more is like, why are they even playing the game? Like, are they playing it because they love the game so freaking much? It doesn't matter where they go and play. Or are they playing because they just want to go to a specific school or play college? And there's nothing wrong with any of that. But I think it's important to know, like, why are you doing it? And then once you know why, you can reverse engineer and there's your plan.
Yeah, yeah. No, that is huge. And a lot of the mental performance coaches I've had on, they emphasize a lot of that. It's more about the process. It's more about like taking a step back and really looking at your why because yeah, like a lot of those things too though can fade really easily. And so when you don't get those offers that you want, yeah, it's like now what? So like I think it's good wrestling with the why and I'm like also looking at is your why good enough, like strong enough, is it something that's going to keep you going and or is it something that's going to make you like get crushed when that thing doesn't happen.
Hitting standpoint or just a baseball standpoint is like I always have the kids like define what is a successful at bat, for example. Okay. And a lot of times I can almost guarantee a few of the answers that I'm gonna get from potential answers that I'm gonna get. It's moving the runner over, it's getting a hit, it's getting on base, it's working the count. It's all these things that you have zero control over. Right. And so, but because you define success that way, which is outcome based, your confidence level is determined by that. Now, if you want to improve your confidence, change how you view success. And if you change it to something that you can always control, which might be like, I'm going to be aggressive, I'm going to swing at a good pitch, I'm going to be on time, like all these different things that you can control every single time, now your confidence is going to go up because now your chance of success are going to go up too. And the flip side is if you focus on the things you can control that will lead to a better technically an outcome and you view that as success, you're going to get a better outcome. You're actually going to get better statistics. But it's very hard to do in this era with offers, with stats, with all these different things is to focus on that. But I think that's huge.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. I want to transition to senior year and I want to take this a different lens because we are already understand if you're already committed, okay, great, like continue developing. From a senior year standpoint, for an athlete who is uncommitted, whether that have been they have zero offers, they maybe have a couple offers, how should they handle this? Especially the ones who like I've had athletes. I have one guy who's going, he's going into senior year and he got pneumonia for like 6 weeks. Then he lost his brother. He had all these different things happen, and it's like, okay, now what? How can I still give myself the best shot in the spring, or maybe for another athlete, but for the spring, so that they can at least make it to college? And what should they be focused on?
Thing is, especially with the player that you just mentioned and lost a family member and was sick as well, is I think the first thing is just giving yourself some grace, just not being too hard on yourself, which we're all guilty of as well. And so I think that's the first thing is just, hey, like there's been some things that have happened outside of your control that may have set you back a little bit, and there's that doesn't mean anything other than just, hey, we got to maybe take a step back to take a few forward. When it comes to recruiting specifically for baseball in the spring, a lot of stuff still happens in the spring. You're going to have to be aggressive, though. That's the big thing I would say. Like, you're going to have to be aggressive. You're going to have to send probably way more emails than even you would expect to send. You're going to have to be okay with being told no, and probably you're going to have to be okay with not even getting a response a lot of the time. I'd get on social media, on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. I'd be posting content regularly. I'd be DMing coaches regularly, and I would not let anything set me back in terms of any feedback or anything that I got in terms of no feedback, poor feedback. Just continue going and continue playing the way you play. And I would just do those two main things, and then I think everything else will take care of itself. And then the third thing is I would be also active on asking coaches to help you as well, and then continue being on them about that as well. You'll have some coach somewhere who will help you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Some coach is going to help you, whether it be a high school coach, a travel ball coach, or a recruiting coach, or whatever that might be. There might be some other ones in between there, but yeah, somebody has, like if you don't ask the question, the answer is going to be no. Like you might as well try and see what opportunities might open up, by
Nick, I'm
chasing
giving
that.
this advice as pretending that nobody who listens to this is ever going to work with me. And so I give this advice because it's like I get like not everyone can work with me or what for whatever reason, whether it be financial or whatever it is, but I still think it's important to like come on here and give genuine advice that will still help them where they're at. Like let's say they can't afford or whatever it is, like this is literally what I would be doing if that were the case. And so like hopefully they do take advice.
That's and I appreciate your perspective on that too, because yeah, it's just like with me with nutrition. I'm not, there's lots of things I'm gonna, be putting out there, even though I know a lot of them won't necessarily work with me either. But it's about like, hey, let's give you still the best shot with based on what you have. Let's transition to I wanna get closer to wrapping up here. Is we'll hit athletes and parents here. So starting with the athletes, what are two really strong wins or things that you've really seen athletes create for themselves, and then two really big mistakes that you see them making? So like habits that they're doing, things that they're doing that are really setting them up for success. So more of those habits, that development, those types
Like
of
the
things.
players who are just so consistent, even when they're not playing well, as I said before, like doing the boring stuff, like even when everything is like nothing's going well, they're not playing well, like there's stuff happening in their personal life, they can still like continue to put in work and practice and do that boring stuff, whether it's in combination of nutrition and working out, lifting weights, and their skill work, and they continue posting on social media, all these different things. They continue to do it even when things aren't going their way. That's what I see as the number one thing from the players who have had the most success, just day in and day out over a long period of time too. Like I'm not just talking about over a couple of weeks, but I'm talking about like months and months and months and even years. And then what are the things that I see that they're doing wrong? I think maybe that's a good question. I think it kind of comes down to again is focusing too much. Here's something that I thought of the other day. If you marry somebody solely off of their looks, I think no matter who you are, you could probably agree not the best idea. Like it might work out, but that's probably not the best advice and not the best plan, I would say. Well, in recruiting, solely picking a school based on looks, logo, maybe it's your dream school growing up, maybe it's in the SEC or some big like something that is something that to do with the looks of it or the status that it would bring you. Probably not a good reason either. It may work out, but that's probably not the best plan and maybe probably not the best fit for you. So I think going someplace where you're wanted is the number one thing that I and recommendation that I give players, whether that be an NAI school, whether that be the University of Tennessee. I think that's the best advice that I could possibly give, because when you go somewhere where you're really wanted, if things start out not in your favor because they wanted you really bad, they're more likely to work with you. Versus if you just push your way into somewhere and they just, throw you a jersey as a walk on last second or whatever, you start playing well or whatever, like you're out of there. So I think that's the thing that I think is most important from what I see players doing right and then what I see people doing wrong.
Now for the parents. So yeah, what are the things that they're doing that you see are really working out in their athletes' favor, and then the things that are like, yeah, no, these are some really really bad mistakes.
You need to have one parent who is involved in your recruiting. You do need to have that. I think that is important just because these are still kids And so, as much as we want to just hand them the keys and let them go, they have a kid brain still. So they still don't necessarily know what's going on. So I think having one parent involved is very helpful from a recruiting standpoint. And in terms of what I see wrong, again, I see too many parents who it becomes this social status thing where it's like my kid went D1, we're focusing on D1, we're focusing on this or that. And at the end of the day, that's if your kid's not D1, you're setting them up for failure because they're going to go there and they're going to struggle because they're not D1, and then they're going to be going to the portal, or they're ended up just going to be quitting all together. So I think those are the two main things that recommendations that I would give for parents.
Okay. So just to kind of summarize, like what would be, speaking to directly to the athletes right now, what would be your number one action that you want them to take this week? And that's like regardless
I would
of,
take some time and think about why you want to play a college sport. And then like honestly, like why specifically like why? Like list out a couple of reasons. Is it because, you want to win a national championship? Is it you want to use your sport to try to get into the highest academic school possible? Do you want to just have a general just the general college experience? You want to go to football games, you want to go to basketball games, you want to just do that kind of stuff. It doesn't matter why. And there's no right or wrong reason, but figuring out like why you want to play college sports will give you the plan. Because then once you know why, then you can put together a plan. It's hard to put together a plan if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing. So I think that's the advice. That's the homework that I would give them.
I love that. Lastly, what's the best way? I know you've got great content, you've got the podcast. What's the best way for athletes and families to connect with you so that they can start
I would
learning
just head to
more
my
on the recruiting
website,
side?
patrickjonesbaseball.com, and then fill out the form on my website, and then I'll reach out to them.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And then in the show notes down below, you guys will also have Patrick's resource or his links. So definitely check down below. But yeah, Patrick, thanks for so much for
No, I
joining us today.
appreciate it. It's
Any
been a
last
ton of
things you want
fun.
to
I,
leave?
I like it because it's different than just solely the baseball. Because I have a podcast too, and a lot of times it's just baseball. So I like that. You're doing different sports, and it's just overall athlete development and college recruiting advice, and not just one thing. And then looking forward to having you on my podcast hopefully in the next several weeks or month or so. So again, thanks for coming on, and hopefully it was helpful.
Yeah, no, this was great. This will be definitely one of those where I'm like, all right, phase athletes, like, listen, I'm going to be sending this to my clients, like, all that kind of stuff. So I really appreciate you hopping on. Yeah, of course. And then for the athletes, again, like you guys heard it. You guys will probably need to re-listen to this, save this for later. And as always, keep striving for greatness.